now. Miss Everett, could you please give us a brief background of your life that led you to choosing your career specifically?
I don't have a specific moment in time that said I want to be an engineer. I think it was kind of a natural progression for me, but I was always interested in aviation and airplanes. I grew up across the street from a tiny little airport with private planes, and I think it just kind of inspired me to say that having a career in aeronautical engineering, I could focus on something that is giving back to society. And for the last 28 years, I've tested model airplanes in a wind tunnel, and I've seen some really interesting things. One of the things that we've worked on that in my career is the development of the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. So I saw that about 12 years before the public did, and it was a big development program to be able to use to be able to develop that different aero configuration of that large swept composite wing. Annika, would you like me to turn my video on?
Yeah, sorry, I should have turned mine on earlier. We normally do, but it doesn't matter either way, which you're comfortable with. It's good.
Okay, that's me.
All right. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
All right, so
Go
sorry,
ahead.
continue.
Uh, it's I think I just was drawn to engineering and working with my hands at a fairly young age. So
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't
So
know
what,
that I was finding my dream job, but I accidentally found my dream job.
yeah, yeah. So do you have any other experiences with STEM learning up, like while you're growing, learning in school?
No, STEM wasn't really even defined when I was in school. It was more just math and sciences. I think they defined STEM much more in the 2000s, and I was already working at NASA by that point in time. But being a woman in engineering, the engineering school that I went to had 92% engineering, and the overall ratio of men to women was 8 to 1. But the class that I was in, the freshman class, was 4 to 1. So it was a big difference, even just in that, change of between years. Um, and, I didn't really let that stop me. It's kind of just like, this is what I want to do, and I can be an engineer just the same as everybody else can be.
Yeah, that's awesome. So after you went through college and you found out that this is the job you want to do, what makes you love STEM so much?
I think it just suits my personality. I like to solve problems. I like to be able to it's kind of like doing a puzzle. Like a lot of engineering problems are like puzzles of here defining a problem, finding a solution, implementing a solution, and then being able to solve the problem that you're working on.
Yeah, yeah. And have you had any struggles along your way of education and getting to your career?
Not that I think of. I know that other women in technical fields have had a much harder road, but I think my personality of just going after what I want has not hindered my studies or my career. I don't find that I'm a small personality that could be pushed around. So when somebody says something to me that I may not find appropriate or appreciate, I'm not afraid to say, "Hey, that's not okay." One example in 28 years was somebody said that I don't belong here because I'm a woman, and I said, "Well, I'm sorry that you feel that way, but I am an educated engineer, a degreed engineer, the same as you, and I have every right to be here."
Yeah, that's a great attitude to have, especially being a minority in the field.
Yep.
All right, now that we have the background, we can open up to questions. You guys can just type them in the chat and I can read them aloud. All All right, we got one. What was the most challenging part of breaking into a male-dominated field, and how did you overcome it?
I just did it, just showed up at work and took every opportunity to ask questions and to learn from anybody that was willing to teach me.
That's really cool. That's good. Would you please tell us about your college university experience?
I went to a predominantly engineering school in northern New York. It was about an hour and a half south of Montreal. So the undergrad program was about 3,500 undergrad students and about 1,000 graduate students. And as I mentioned, it was 92% engineering. So there was a lot of shared experiences. Everybody that was in the curriculum was trying to be an engineer. And I think that differs when you go to a school that has multiple disciplines. Like San Jose State has so many options to offer, but because I was in an engineering track and all of my friends were in an engineering track, we kind of all, took that journey together. And I still, 30 years later, am in touch with several of the people that I went to college with, and we're all over the US.
That's great to have long-term friendships and connections in your field. Have you ever made a mistake that almost put someone else's life in danger?
I wouldn't say life. I do have a very high stress job with a lot of energy with equipment. We have four 65,000 horsepower drive motors, and there's a lot of power that's used, but we have a lot of safety procedures. And it's just the thought of how can I do things safely? So NASA has a safety culture to make you think about that. That we are aware of that so that that never is an issue. I'm not going to say I haven't made mistakes in my career, and I have made bad decisions, and sometimes I've been able to get myself out of them technically, and sometimes there's been older engineers there to mentor and say, hey, this might have been a better way. So you learn by making mistakes, both in life and in your career. I have a lot
Yeah,
of young engineers that work for me, and that's what I try to tell them. If you're not making the same mistake over and over, I can handle any mistake that you guys can make as long as you learn from it.
yeah, I live by that as well. What do you think NASA looks for when hiring people, such as viewing resumes?
I don't know that I could answer that. I know that hiring practices have changed. I mean, I think from my biography, I've been at NASA for 28 years. So the process has changed. Everything was done over a printed letter or a phone call, and now everything is digital. So I think that keywords in your resume get searched more often than something else that's going to stand out on a printed resume.
All right. So how often do you work with your team and other people?
Every day, my team works 2 shifts a day. So I'm on call for graveyard shift, and then I'm there every day for about 8.5, 9 hours. And I probably interface with over 50 people per day. And that could be a craft mechanic, an electrician, a technician that does instrumentation work, other engineers, and then we have test engineers who do the testing of the models. We have controls engineers that are in charge of the facility and how the facility operates. We have electrical engineers. We have mechanical engineers. And the one thing that's really nice about the small group, so my group is probably about 150 people, but we kind of all look out for each other. It's not a cutthroat work environment. I think in this area, some of the tech environments can be very difficult because everybody's trying to get ahead versus trying to help each other for a common mission.
Yeah, it's nice to see that your work environment is diverse and helpful to each other. Has anyone ever made you feel like quitting or stopping? If so, how did you push through it and continue pursuing your career?
I think if that's the case, everybody, maybe it probably pushed me harder to prove myself, to say that I can do this, to, to say, I'm just going to learn from every hardship, take something away from it positive, keep a positive attitude, and just continue to work hard.
Yeah. Do you struggle to spend time with your son and family?
I don't. I have a very unique skill, at least I think it is of compartmentalization. So when I'm at work, I'm at work. And when I'm at home, I'm at home. So I like to compartmentalize of work is work and I can do what I do for a certain amount of time. But my commute home, so I drive about 15 miles in between Moffett Fields and my home in San Jose. And that's when I reset, to say, okay, now I'm changing gears and what am I going to make for dinner and what sporting events are tonight and these, to change my plans. So I make it a point of not having a laptop. I have a desktop computer, so I can walk away from my job. I am on call, but that's, part of the nature of the level of responsibility that I have as a facility manager. But I maybe get called once or twice a month. It's not a it's not a frequent thing.
Yeah, it's good to have a balance.
And
What is
setting those boundaries, my boss is guilty of texting me and I'm like, is this an emergency? And she's like, no, but I wanted to, and I was like, this can wait till tomorrow. And it's a good reminder for her too. She has two small children. And I was like, walk away from work, spend time at home. This is okay. It's okay to not be on email, not answering emails, not being constantly involved.
Yeah, I think that's a good mindset for any career.
Mhm.
What is your least favorite part of your job or working?
I would have to say up until about 8 years ago, it was shift work because I did work grave shift and swing shift. But we had a fair rotation of about 12 engineers, so it wasn't constant. Some people prefer to work all night and stay on grave shift all the time. I found that I liked grave shift better than swing shift, which is swing shift is 3 p.m. to typically 11 or midnight. And then grave shift is usually 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. So it's a different lifestyle. You have to try to, maintain your life, but find a different time to sleep. But changing your schedule often like that was a difficulty. When I took the facility manager position, I was allowed to only work day shift, and I've been doing that for about 8 years.
All right. Have you ever thought that this job could be a little too difficult at times?
I think every job has that. But I kind of embrace the challenges of, and I find that I have the best attitude and when I can leave work and say, wow, today was a really hard day, but I earned my paycheck and here's what I accomplished versus a day where you just go answer emails and go to meetings. Like I think I thrive on the pressure of the high stress job.
That's really cool. Does your job require more computer digital work or more like hands-on type work?
I think it can be both. I definitely get my hands dirty every day. Um, and there are multiple opportunities, but any job is what you make it. So if there's something fun to go do out in the field, then that's where I want to be and go help. So an example of that is, for 10 weeks, we took apart an axial compressor that's 80 years old. And I had never seen that in my career. So it's fascinating to see something new of a machine that we run 18 and a half hours a day, every day, for that to be shut down, to take it apart, and I wasn't involved in the project. I was really just got to be a spectator.
And that's really cool to see the inner workings of like what you rely your job on. Were there any specific mentors or role models who significantly helped you along your career path?
Yes, I had a mentor, who was the facility manager prior to me. He mentored me for close to 20 years. One of the things that I asked him when he retired after 49 years of federal service, I said, "Why did you pick me? Did you see potential, or did you see that I was a girl at 23 years old entering this male dominated field and had that like kind of protection kind of thing?" And he wouldn't answer. He said, "You don't need to know that." But he's like, "Obviously I felt like you were worth my time." And every project he would be like, "Hey, let's go do this. Let's go climb on the roof and do this thing with this valve." And so, I feel like he never treated me any differently than any of the men that worked there.
That's really good. Have you ever had multiple projects and had to prioritize some over others? And if so, how did you select the ones you considered a priority?
So I look at it every day. I make a to-do list and kind of prioritize what has the soonest deliverable, what's the most important, what can wait. I think that's a daily thing. And it may not be a big project where you have to say this project's more important than this project. A lot of my job as a facility manager is being overseeing the other project managers. So a lot of times I help them prioritize what their tasks need to be that factor into the bigger picture. We have a lot of individual contributors, but they don't always work well to integrate with how their systems work with other systems. And that's one of my strong suits, is to bring all of those systems together to get people talking about, oh, your project affects this project. So, but every day I prioritize which tasks get done, and some of them you're never going to finish all the work that you have every day, and you have to be okay to say, you know what, this is going to wait till tomorrow. And sometimes you have to say an email, send an email and say, I just didn't get to this, it's still on the to-do list, I haven't forgotten about you, but here's a goal of when I think I can provide what you asked me to do.
Yeah, that's good. What do you wish you had known about your career before you started working?
I think that I went into my career, my printed degree is in aeronautical and mechanical engineering, and I thought that I would like the aeronautical side, but I'm definitely like the mechanical side much better than the aero side. So it was a surprise. I have the best of both worlds because I do see a lot of the aero configurations and things, but I'm definitely mechanically inclined. So
Can you explain the specific difference between those types of engineering real quick?
oh, yeah. Mechanical engineers are typically related to machinery, manufacturing, power, and then chemical engineers do a lot of work with refineries or pharmaceutical. Civil engineers are the bridge builders and the road builders. Um, I think they call them aerospace engineers instead of aeronautical now because of the change to a lot more space. But there's manufacturing engineers, there's but the big five are chemical, mechanical, aerospace, civil, and manufacturing.
It's a really diverse field than I first thought it was. As you were studying in school, did you ever feel pressure to quit and find something else?
I like to say that engineering school was the best 4 years and worst 4 years of my life. Yes, I absolutely did. And there was the prove it your semester of all of the core engineering classes, and my GPA dropped to a lower than what I would have liked. I lost some of my grants to go to school, but I never wanted to quit. I knew that engineering school was going to get me to be successful in life. But it's very, very difficult um, of a degree to pursue. But really, all that degree tells somebody is that you have the ability to learn. And when you come out of school with an engineering degree, somebody knows that you stuck with it and that you have the perseverance to do hard things.
All right. So how long did you have to go to school to get that degree?
I have a bachelor's, so that's a 4-year program at the school that I went to. Because it was engineering based, they made sure that we got the classes that you needed. I think that's changed, or in bigger schools where there's just more students, that you may not be able to get the courses that you need. So maybe engineering may be a 5-year program. I stayed an extra semester to get the mechanical minor on my degree. But I only have a bachelor's degree. I've never felt the need to have a master's degree or a PhD. I've never been looked at differently because I don't have an advanced degree as an engineer in the workplace that I work in.
All right. So if you weren't a NASA engineer, what other employment positions would you be considered?
So I kind of am fascinated by the meat packing industry, and I actually think that I could have a second career as a butcher, which is completely off the wall, out of the ordinary, but it's fascinated me. I talked to the butchers at Lenardi's. It's just one of those things that I think I could be good at, which is completely different than engineering.
It's a really interesting side career that could happen.
Yeah.
Have you ever
I am
struggled working?
eligible to retire in 8 years, and I'll be under 60. So I do have an opportunity to try a whole new career.
Let us know if it works out.
Okay.
Have you ever struggled working with your team or with teamwork?
I actually function really well with a team, and I think that I have the ability to bring people together, but you're not always going to like everybody that you work with, but you have to have a skill to say, here's what this person brings to the table, and I have to work with them. Just like you're not always going to like all of your teachers or professors or other people, but you have to learn to tolerate other people and say, you know what, I don't really see eye to eye with you, but I can appreciate your role in this project. And my philosophy is I don't need to be liked in my role. Everybody doesn't have to like me, but I need to be respected for the job that I do.
I think that's a better mindset than headbutting with your team.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And those are life skills that you have to learn how to deal with people, how to get along with all different types of people. And because I have such a diverse work group of different education levels, different skill sets, you really do have to learn to work with multiple different types of people.
Yeah, I think that's applicable in any career. Can you describe a typical day at work, how it goes?
I go to work before 6:30 in the morning because we run 2 shifts. I have to be there at shift change, so I interface with the grave shift engineers and the grave shift team, and then the incoming day shift team. So I'm usually there for about a half an hour of what went well. Is there a problem? Does something need to be fixed? Can I help improve a process or something that's going on in the wind tunnel? Then I usually go to my office and check my email, have a cup of coffee, make my to-do list. And then, it's a combination of where do I have to be? Do I have to be in a meeting? Do I have a Teams meeting? What's my task list? There are times when I am not in my office all day. There are other days when I'm like, oh, I got to get up and move around because I get buried in data and looking at a spreadsheet or plotting something. So it could be all over the place. I
It's
do
really,
get about 3 miles on my watch, on my Apple Watch daily. So I do move around quite a bit at work.
a good way to get your steps in.
The size of our facility is about the size of a city block.
Oh, wow.
So it's a big facility.
Is it multi-story too, or?
Our office building is 3 stories, and the wind tunnels are in more like high bay, more like kind of like hangar areas.
Mhm.
So it's a big area. It's big. It's a
That's
big.
really cool. What specific skills do you think were most crucial in helping you succeed in your role?
I think being able to communicate effectively, being able to solve problems, presenting a solution to a team to say, here's the problem, here's how I think we should fix this, here's what we need to do. And being able to execute the skills to engineer a solution, implement. I have the advantage of having an on-site machine shop. So we're able to fabricate things right on site of here, I can make a drawing, design a part, and then somebody can build that for me, usually within the course of a couple shifts.
All right. So were you always good at communicating with your team, or was it a skill that you acquired over time?
I think I had basic communication skills that started, but you definitely develop skills, and that's one of the things that I convey to younger engineers when I work with them is getting to know your team. That you may be in charge, but you have to rely on all of these people to do the same job. So effective communication is only going to make you more successful with these 7 or 8 people that maybe that you require to get done what you need to get done that day.
And did you ever feel unwell and had to skip work a day and then felt bad about skipping?
I think that offices have sick time for a reason. I don't feel like missing a day of work is the end of the world. I'd rather have somebody be home and get themselves well and come back stronger than to come to work just because that's the thought process of, well, I have to be there. That's why we have sick time.
Yeah, I agree. And one can also, I guess, get worse over time if you're going to work
Or
while sick.
for other people in
Oh
a
yeah,
shared
that's true.
environment. You don't want somebody to get 7 other people sick and then you can't operate the facility because half of your team is out sick.
Yeah. So what does receiving NASA's Exceptional Service Medal mean to you, and how do you believe you earned it?
So I probably earned that from a lot of the work that I did coming out of the pandemic. So kind of the world shut down. My facility shut down for 2.5 weeks. I brought my computer home and I was home for 2.5 weeks, and then I had to reactivate a facility and get everything organized in a whole new world that nobody had navigated yet. And we operated for a year and 10 months before we transferred a case of COVID in our workplace. So we took a lot of precautions, and I brought all of that team together to say, here's how we're going to operate. Here's how we can keep ourselves safe. Here's how we can keep our customers safe. Um, and it was a surprise to me. And because it's an agency level award, and there's only one exceptional service medal per year on the agency level, I was honored when people nominated me for that at the agency level. And I have a really nice plaque hanging in my office, and I literally got a medal to wear around my neck. I joked that I was going to wear it every day, but I haven't.
That's wonderful. You should wear it every day.
Yes.
All right. So do you ever get a bit mad or frustrated at yourself or others when working? And if so, how do you control it?
Yes, and that's human nature. And I think the best thing is to say, you know what, I'm going to walk away right now. This conversation isn't productive. And to be able to recognize that. And a lot of that comes with age and maturity. I probably didn't do that well in my 20s as much as I did later in my career to say, oh, you know what, this isn't productive. And a lot of times I'll just go for a walk around the block, take a breath, just reset, and then say, okay, I won't apologize for doing my job, but I will apologize to people for my tone or if I was a little too aggressive. Um,
Yeah, that makes sense. I know you said that you keep your work separate from your home life, but maybe during your swing shifts or your graveyard shifts, has your work-life balance ever been off? And if yes, what have you done to correct it?
Absolutely. And when I was younger and single, it didn't matter. It's like, all right, I'm just going to go to work. And then if I sleep the rest of the day, maybe I have laundry to do. I think that becomes more important as you are older and you have a family. Um, you just have to set the boundaries and be firm about setting boundaries. The good thing about that is that engineers are very good at that. So it's like, oh, and there are days when I have to stay at work. There's a problem, I'm fixing something, but that's where I have a team at home where I can call my husband or call my son and say, hey, I am going to be at work till 7 o'clock and, or whatever. And people, like that's okay. Cause it's not every day. So there's the one-offs, but I do really prioritize trying to have a good work-life balance. And it's healthy. It's healthy for your mental health. It's healthy for, to go back and enjoy your job every day when you're not constantly, when your job doesn't become your life.
Yeah, I think sometimes taking those breaks away from something makes you like it even more.
Mhm.
All right, do we have any more questions, guys? Feel free to type them in the chat. We have a couple more minutes left in the Zoom meeting.
I had the opportunity to take a management position in the last 2 years. And I asked my husband, and he said, I have one question for you. Said, would you be happy moving up to that higher level? And I said, well, I could do the job. And he's like, that's not what I asked you. And I said, you know what? I wouldn't be. So I stayed at a lower level to be able to um, use the skill sets that I'm really good at. And I feel like I benefit the team better at a lower level than to take a high level management position. That's a lot of budgets and meetings and things that I wouldn't enjoy. So I think that's important to look at in careers also, of what's going to make me happy? Where am I going to feel fulfilled versus what's the next level? What's the promotion? What's the next step? That constant grind of what's next? How can I be better? I don't think you need to have promotions in order to have the drive to be better, to learn, and to succeed.
Yeah, I think it's really good to prioritize your own mental health and happiness in your careers and lives. We have one more question here. Do you have any suggestions for extracurriculars high schoolers could do if they want to go into engineering and STEM?
So a lot of high schools I'm learning have engineering classes. There's always robotics, learning to computer aided design, CAD drawings. Some schools have machine shops, and getting that hands-on experience of working with turning a block of metal into a usable tool or device. It's really about what you might enjoy. But I think there's opportunities out there. I know that this high school that my son is going to has a 4-year engineering curriculum as electives available.
That's a really good opportunity in a high school.
Yep. So speak to your guidance counselors, ask what, hey, I might go into engineering. What would you recommend that I do?
All right. And then the other question we got was pretty similar to that. Specific courses to take. Was there anything specific in college that you looked for to go into engineering, or was it just that you were interested in the aerospace field?
I think that it was more, I was interested because I went to a dedicated engineering school. My courses were pretty well set. I probably knew over the course of 4 years what I needed to take, what was available to me. And the electives that I took some English electives because I also like to read. So it broke up the engineering and the math. But math is definitely involved in most of engineering. You have to learn statics, you have to learn dynamics and machine design. So all of those involve a certain level of math. I don't do calculus anymore. I haven't for a good 15 years.
That's good to know.
Yeah,
now that I'm struggling in calculus.
calculus is hard, and there may be a time when it just clicks. There may not be, and you just have to get through it. It's not a skill that you are going to use every day as a practical engineer.
All right, so we don't have any more questions in the chat, so I think given that we have less than a minute left, I should wrap this up. Thank you so much, Miss Everett, for talking to us today about your career and giving us tips and getting into your field.
You're very welcome, and I will leave the floor open that you have my contact information. If any of you need future mentoring, Mrs. Van Zylen can get in touch with me as well. I'm open to that. I like to help people succeed.
Thank you so much for that. I will share your email to our middle school members and our high school members as well. And thank you so much for being here today, everyone.